Here in page TSX, a component for our settings page, if we want to print a session value in the browser, we can simply type here const session, just a variable, await auth, and we need to make this function an async function to avoid those warning that comes in await. This auth function here that we use to get the session value comes from auth.ts, this auth here that we extract from NextJS function. Now that we have a session value, then we can use stringify, JSON stringify, to print that as a string in the browser. We can do that in line number 9 by typing json.stringify and pass the variable session. Now here, back in our form, let's log in. And we can see here in the settings page a session being printed. Our session value contains a user object and an expire. So there are session user has name, email, and image. From the auth.js documentation about the session, it says that auth.js libraries only expose a subset of the user's information by default in a session. Subset of a user, meaning not all of the user's information is being put in a session after the user successfully logged in into the system, to not accidentally expose sensitive user information. And what we have seen earlier, we have seen email, name, email, and image. Now if we want to add, like for example, it says here, a common use case is to add user's ID to the session. Below it is shown how to do this based on the session strategy you are using. As we can see here, we only have name, email, and image. So if we add a new property of this object, let's say an ID, then we need to implement a callback. We can do that here in auth.ts. We can add here callbacks, which is an object. If we have the callbacks, we will be presented by available functions to serve as a callback. These are sign in, redirect, session, and GWT. What we need here is GWT and session. So here we can type in async session as a function. We can extract here session, and here we can return that session. We can console log this session in the server terminal for us to see what was contained in that session variable. So we can label here session, session. Back here in the settings page, we need to sign out, and let's log in again. And looking in the server terminal, we can see here session and the object, session object, which has user, name, email, image, and expire. Exactly the same from what we have seen in the browser. Now that we know that this session and this session here are the same, that means that this callback session is responsible for returning a session to that session that we printed in the browser. The next thing we need to do is to add async GWT to get the token. We can extract token here and return token. And again, we can log the token here in the server terminal for us to see the value of that variable token. And what's the difference between the session and the token. Let's bring them up. And back here in the login form, let's log in again. And in the terminal, we can see here, scroll down, we can see here a token printed and also the session. Now we can see the difference of the two. Token contains user information. From the documentation, session is just a subset of user information. We can see here name, email, picture, which is equal to the subset here. Name, email, and image. All those different picture image, they are the same image. And this one here, this is the ID of the user in the database. We can verify that by going inside source of our project. Source contains all the directory of our project: action, apps, components, data, lib, prisma, schema. And from this directory, we can type npx prisma studio. Then it will launch a localhost in port 555. Port 5555, similar to a phpMyAdmin. And we can see here, I have two records, field and name. What I'm using always when logging in is the name at example.com, and you can see here cm6 in GG, wherein you can see also exactly the same in this sub, the value of this sub cm6 in GG. Now back into the code, since we know that we can extract ID from this token variable, here we know that there is a user object in that variable. We can then do this: f session.user and token.sub. Then we can assign the token.sub as a value to the new property ID in the user object in the session object, and then return that. We can verify that again. Let me remove this console log and move this down here to verify that the session user contains an ID. We can also see that in the browser. Now back in here, let's sign this out and let's log in again. Null. There is 6 error here. Now back here in the code, we need to extract as well the, and let's remove this import. We don't need this. Alright, now we see there is an additional property to the user object, an ID. What we did is very similar to what is described in this documentation. So that's how you extend session by using callback in our auth.ts. Here has a different implementation. What we did in our code is we implement it in session, but here they did is in the token user if the user is available during sign in. But this one, I think it will cause an error if token ID does not exist.